I woke up to a soft knock on the door, the kind of gentle sound that could only come from my son. He had a habit of sneaking into my room late at night when something was troubling him. He never liked to sleep alone, and I never really minded. I often let him crawl into bed beside me, comforting him in a way that felt natural, as if our bond was strong enough to make up for everything else that was missing in my life. But this time I was different. As I opened my eyes, the room still felt heavy with the fog of sleep. My thoughts were tangled, and the disorienting weight of the affair clung to me like a second skin. I had spent the last few weeks battling myself, torn between the family I loved and the man who had awakened something inside of me that I hadn't even realized was dormant. There were days when I barely recognized myself, and nights when the guilt kept me awake, turning in my mind like an unyielding storm. But now I had to put that all aside. My son was waiting. He stepped into the room, his small frame illuminated by the faint light from the hallway. I forced a smile, though it felt almost foreign, like something I had learned to do rather than something that came naturally. He asked me if he could sleep beside me, his voice soft, innocent, unaware of the chaos inside my mind. Of course, I said yes. He climbed into bed and curled up beside me, his presence a reminder of the life I was supposed to protect. But as he settled in, my mind drifted back to the affair. I couldn't shake the weight of what I had done. How could I look my son in the eye and pretend everything was fine when I had betrayed everything I had ever believed in? I tried to focus on the steady rhythm of his breathing, the comfort of his small body pressed against mine, but my phone buzzed on the nightstand. My heart skipped a beat. It was him, the man who had become my secret. His message was simple, a reminder of the world I was living in, the one I kept hidden away from my family. The temptation was always there, a persistent whisper that promised something I couldn't resist. It wasn't just physical, it was something deeper, something that spoke to a part of me that had long been dormant. The excitement of sneaking around, the thrill of being wanted in a way I hadn't felt in years, it was intoxicating. And yet, every time my phone lit up with his name, the guilt hit harder. I couldn't ignore it anymore. I knew I was teetering on the edge of something dangerous, but there was a part of me that didn't care. The pull of that other life was too strong. I closed my eyes, trying to focus on my son beside me. His warmth, his innocence, it all felt like a fragile bubble that could burst at any moment. I knew I couldn't keep living this double life, but I didn't know how to stop. How could I explain to him, to my husband, the choices I had made? How could I ever go back to what we had before everything had changed? As I lay there in the dark, a part of me wanted to just forget, to push away the weight of the affair and pretend like nothing had happened. But I couldn't. The guilt was suffocating, pressing down on me until I thought I might suffocate under the weight of it all. I kissed my son's forehead, the simple gesture both a comfort and a reminder of what I stood to lose. In that moment, I realized just how far I had fallen. The affair wasn't just a mistake. It was a betrayal of everything I had built with my family. I had allowed myself to be swept away by something that felt exciting and new, but now I was trapped in a lie. And as much as I wanted to pretend like everything was fine, I couldn't escape the truth. The truth that my family was at risk, and it was all because of me. My son's soft snoring filled the quiet of the room, a stark contrast to the storm inside my mind. I had to make a choice, but I didn't know where to start. Every decision felt wrong, and yet I knew I couldn't keep living in this world of secrets and lies. Something had to change. But what? I couldn't shake the feeling of guilt. Every time I saw my son's innocent face or held him close, I felt like I was betraying him. The affair wasn't something I could easily forget, even as I went about my daily routine, pretending everything was fine. But the truth was, nothing felt fine. I could still feel the weight of his touch, the spark that had ignited something in me that I hadn't realized was missing. Every message from him felt like a whisper of something forbidden, and it pulled at me, pulling me further into a world I never intended to enter. It wasn't just the physical act that had me tangled. It was the feeling of being wanted, desired in a way that I hadn't felt in years. The attention, the affection, the validation, it was intoxicating. I had forgotten what it felt like to feel seen outside of being a mother and a wife. But the more I gave in, the more I lost myself. I began to crave it. I began to crave him. Each encounter left me feeling high, like I was finally free from the monotony of my life, from the expectations of motherhood and marriage that I had been living up to for so long. Yet, with every encounter, the weight of my actions grew heavier. My son would reach for me, needing me, and I would pull away, unable to give him the attention he deserved. He didn't understand why I wasn't fully present with him anymore. His innocent questions, "Why are you always on your phone, Mom?" cut through me like a knife. I wasn't ready to face the truth, but I knew it was there, hanging in the air like a shadow. My relationship with him was changing, and I couldn't deny it. The affair had become my escape. I knew it was wrong, that it wasn't fair to my family, but it felt like a release from the constant pressure I felt. My husband, unaware, continued to live his life, never suspecting the chaos brewing under the surface. He didn't see the messages, the late-night calls. He didn't see the way I started to distance myself from him, emotionally and physically. I couldn't tell him, though. I couldn't bring myself to admit what I had done, to confess the betrayal that was slowly eating away at me. The affair partner knew exactly what to say, how to make me feel alive again. His words were a balm to the wound I hadn't realized existed, soothing a part of me that had long been neglected. But as I gave more of myself to him, I gave less to my family. I started to feel disconnected, like I was living two separate lives that could never collide. But there was a constant fear nagging at me. The fear of being caught, of losing everything. The guilt wasn't just a passing feeling anymore. It was becoming a part of me, and it was starting to affect my ability to function. I could see it in my son's eyes, the hurt that was slowly creeping in. He didn't understand why I wasn't as available as I used to be. He missed our moments together, the times when I could just sit with him, hold him, listen to him. But now, I found myself distracted, my mind constantly drifting back to him, the affair partner. I felt selfish. I felt torn. There was a part of me that wanted to keep chasing that feeling, that rush of being desired, while another part screamed at me to stop, to pull myself back before it was too late. But I wasn't ready to stop. Not yet. Not when I was finally getting what I needed, even if it was at the expense of everything else. I didn't know how to let go. The thrill of the affair was too strong. And as much as I told myself I would stop, that I would put an end to it, I couldn't. Every message, every stolen moment felt like a temporary escape from. The truth was starting to slip through the cracks. It was inevitable. I could feel it in the way my son looked at me, in the quiet moments when he waited for my attention, only to be met with my distracted gaze. He was starting to notice, starting to feel the distance. And I couldn't deny it anymore. The affair was taking its toll on everything I had built, on everything I thought I could protect. It wasn't just the guilt anymore, it was the impending sense of loss that was consuming me, piece by piece. My son had always been my world, my reason for getting up every day. But now, as I watched him struggle with my absence, I felt like a stranger to him. He didn't understand why I wasn't present the way I used to be. His small voice calling out for me in the middle of the night, his attempts to connect with me, they all seemed to go unnoticed, drowned out by the constant pull of the affair. It wasn't his fault. He didn't deserve this. But I was too deep in the lie to see a way out. I had to face the truth. The affair wasn't just a mistake. It was ruining everything. My marriage, my relationship with my son, my sense of self. It was like I had been living in a fog, thinking I could balance it all, thinking I could keep up the charade. But now, the weight of the lies was too much to bear. The guilt had shifted from something I could brush aside to something that suffocated me at every turn. I had let it go on too long, and now it was unraveling, threatening to expose everything I had tried so hard to keep hidden. There was no more pretending. The truth was knocking at the door, and I couldn't ignore it anymore. The affair had to end. I had to end it. But even as I made that decision, I felt a pang of fear, a feeling that I might not be able to walk away completely. The pull of the affair was strong, its grip on me unrelenting. It had become my escape, my way of feeling alive in a life that had begun to feel stagnant. But now I saw it for what it really was, an escape that had led me further away from everything that mattered. The realization hit me with the force of a tidal wave. I wasn't just betraying my husband, I wasn't just betraying my son, I was betraying myself. I had allowed my emotions, my desires, to cloud my judgment. I had gotten caught up in the excitement of something new, of something forbidden, and in doing so, I had neglected the things that had once meant the most to me. I couldn't take it back, but I could stop. I had to stop before it was too late. But even as I made the decision to end the affair, the fear of facing the consequences loomed large. What would happen when my husband found out? What would happen when my son realized the depth of my betrayal? I wasn't ready to face that, but I knew I had no choice. The longer I let this go on, the worse it would get. I had to take responsibility for my actions, no matter how difficult it was. The affair had offered me something, yes. But now, all it had given me was a broken sense of self, a guilt that would follow me for a long time. I couldn't fix everything, but I could start with the one thing that mattered most: my son. I had to find a way to reconnect with him, to show him that I was still his mother, that I still cared, that I wasn't lost in the mess of my own mistakes. I had to make things right, even if it meant facing the pain I had been avoiding. The decision to end the affair was just the beginning. The real work was in rebuilding everything I had almost destroyed. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't happen overnight. But for the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe. The hardest part was over. Now it was up to me to find a way to heal, to make amends, and to start over, this time with my son, my family, and my own conscience. I stood there, staring at the phone in my hand, my fingers hovering over the screen. I had deleted his contact, blocked his number, and yet, part of me still wanted to reach out. It was an impulse, something deep inside me that resisted the decision I had just made. The affair had been more than just physical. It had become a part of who I thought I was, a part of me that I wasn't ready to let go of. But deep down, I knew I had no choice. I had to make this choice, even if it meant facing the consequences. The hardest part wasn't cutting him off. It was facing the reality of what I had done. I had been living in a fantasy, thinking I could have it all without anyone getting hurt. But I had hurt everyone. My husband, my son, myself. The guilt was still there, a constant reminder of my failure. The weight of my actions pressed down on me, but as I stood there, I realized I had to make a choice about the kind of person I wanted to be moving forward. Did I want to remain the person who had betrayed her family, or did I want to be someone who could rebuild, who could try to make things right? I couldn't undo the damage I had caused, but I could stop making it worse. I could take responsibility for my actions and rebuild what had been broken. The first step was facing my son. He deserved better than the distracted, distant mother I had become. He deserved someone who could be there for him without hesitation, someone who wouldn't be caught in the web of lies and deceit. I wasn't sure how to repair that, but I knew it had to start with honesty. I thought about the nights we used to spend together, the moments when it was just him and me, when I was fully present, fully involved. I missed those times, but they seemed like a distant memory now. It felt like I had to earn back his trust, but I didn't know if I could. I had already let him down. I had already taken too much from him. But I had to try. He was my son, and I couldn't let my mistakes define our relationship. I thought about my husband as well. He had no idea what had been happening, no idea about the lies I had been living. And I couldn't tell him right now, not when I was still trying to figure out how to pick up the pieces. But I would have to face him eventually. I couldn't keep living in the shadows, hiding from the truth. It wasn't fair to him, and it wasn't fair to me. I had to be honest with him, even if it meant losing everything. I didn't know where this path would lead. I didn't know if my marriage could survive the weight of my betrayal, or if I could ever truly rebuild the relationship with my son. But I knew that I had to start somewhere. I had to take responsibility for the mess I had made and try to fix it. I couldn't keep running from the consequences of my actions. The affair had been a mistake, a huge, devastating mistake, but now I had to make the choice to be better, to rebuild, to do whatever it took to heal the wounds I had caused. As the days passed, I focused on the small steps. I spent more time with my son, talking to him, listening to him, trying to bridge the gap that I had created. There were moments when he looked at me with confusion, moments when I could see the hurt in his eyes, but I knew that I had to keep showing up. I had to prove to him that I was still his mother, that I still cared, that I was willing to make things right. It wouldn't be easy, and it wouldn't happen overnight, but it was a start. I also began to reflect on myself. What had driven me to make these choices? Why had I allowed myself to slip so far into a lie? I didn't have all the answers, but I was determined to find them. I had to learn from this, grow from it,